I got asked by John Charles, who was the head of entertainment for TV1, to move from TV2 Christchurch up and do Radio with Pictures and Ready to Roll, which is a great opportunity. But I left behind a week of it, my first love, satirical comedy, and in those days, Ready to Roll, Radio with Pictures, there was no such thing as video clips. So if an overseas song was on the hit parade, then you had a performer from New Zealand singing that, which some people nowadays find hard to understand. So we're with Ready to Roll, Radio with Pictures, we're at the beginning of making our own video clips. We started to do that, and also in terms of hosts, it had come from Auckland with the inimitable Barry Jenkins, and was replaced with, for obvious reasons, with a Wellington-based host. And I think we had Phil O'Brien, and then I got a letter from this woman saying Phil O'Brien is rubbish, I could do miles better than him. And I thought, oh, a woman, that's really interesting. And so I got her down for audition. Her name's Karen Hay, and I remember distinctly, I thought, well, this could be fantastic, she could be great. And she was, and I remember management saying, you can't have a woman speak like that on television. And I went, what do you mean? That's how I speak, you know, with a Kiwi nasal drawl, that's how we all speak. She can't speak like that on television. So we're at that cusp of our own identity on TV as opposed to received pronunciation. My first job with Tom Parkinson was a thing called A Joke's a Joke, where the idea was you went out and just got basically people to tell jokes to camera like I'm now. And so I went around the country for 3 months filming every bad joke teller there is in New Zealand. So I learnt a lot about comedy timing from thousands and thousands of badly told jokes. And so I've always felt that I've understood structure of comedy, and from a technical point of view rather than from whether it makes me laugh or not. I don't ever apply that to it. So I love directing actors. It's one of my great joys. And in terms of comedy, going, okay, how do we set this up so that actually the audience will get it as funny on the way through? Don't muck around with it on the way through. Take it from the page and get it to the screen, and so that it's preserved and that the audience has the opportunity to laugh. You never know with comedy. That's what's so exciting. It's either there or there. It's with drama you go, well, it was quite dramatic, but with comedy, not funny, funny. There was no such thing as editing in those days. You did it live to tape as a live show, and we did it with a theatrical revolve. So on one segment of the revolve you had the first sketch, and you went to the hosts on the other set and cut away, they spun the revolve round, and then wham, the actors jumped on board the revolve and did the next sketch. So from a technical point of view, cameras and so forth, there was no going back and doing it again. Later in my career, when, for example, we started Dancing with the Stars, and people said, what do you mean doing a 2-hour show with a 20-piece band live to air? That's insane, we can't possibly do that. And I said, for goodness sake, all television was live in those days, and there are a few people around who actually were in those days. The history of Gliding On is that I heard it on radio, the radio version of Glide Time as it was called, and I thought that would be great television. And long story short, TV bought the scripts from radio and obviously changed them and worked on them, but turned them into the first series of Gliding On. It tapped into something that we all know. It was broader than just the public service. It was about people in offices. Most 50% of the population work in offices of some description, so they could relate to it on the basis of, oh, I know a person like that, I know an office like that, I know how difficult it is to get someone. Bureaucracy is also continues to be prevalent, and so taking the mickey out of bureaucracy was a smart thing to do, and that's what I think people loved most. I sat down with Billy and said, well, what do you want to do? And we talked about what he wanted to do, and the more sketch-based, more rather than song and dance, more sketch or a bit more edgy sort of comedy. He was really keen to do a bit more. I come from political satire, and so I kind of put all that on the table as the top of the pile, and he really liked that, and he was able, as Māori, to go to places that I just thought was fantastic, because he could go to places that I couldn't dream of going to on a week of it. And obviously always said to him, Bill, you sure that this is cool to do this, you know. Yeah, no worry, bro. No, it's cool, it's cool. And he knew his audiences, and he knew where the boundaries were. Fantastic work ethic, and incredible mimic. Real people who are musical are great mimics, but he had a real immense talent. You could play him a piece of audio or video and he would just get that voice straight away. And he'd done the hard yards with the Volcanics. He'd done that a bit like the Top Twins, you know, learned his craft on stage in front of tough English audiences, UK audiences. But that, I suppose, that very common amongst performers, on stage great, ebullient, off stage intensely shy and private. The story we wanted to tell was Lynn Matthews' story, his wife, his Pākehā wife, and so what we've got really is a love story. I suppose the tribute is that Lynn, who's a very intensely private person, has seen the rough cuts and given her tick of approval, which is to me the most important tick of approval. Seeing herself portrayed by Morgana O'Reilly, she was quite overcome by how much we got right in terms of accuracy of clothing and the way people behaved and the way the characters were played. Sometimes just I had real moments when Tony was in character and in costume, and I just had shivers sometimes. I had some really scary moments where I just knew Billy was looking down going, "Holden, you tosser, you know, what are you doing?" I could just sense Billy, because Tainui's performance is so fantastically close, and you see, it was emotional. It was very emotional, and but I think and I hope that we've given audiences a side of Billy that they may not, well, certainly most people would not ever have experienced, and that's his private side. And he was such a lovely man and so talented. So I do tear up a bit when you get towards the end of the film, because it's quite an emotional story. It's one of the most pivotal experiences of my life, and I mean, now we're what, 18 years on? Who would have believed that? I certainly wouldn't have, and particularly in the first few weeks where it was just unbelievable chaos, because we had never done this in New Zealand. We'd never done fast turnaround. But I love Shortland Street. Shortland Street it's a tribute to the many producers that to this day that go in, you do your bit and you get out, someone else comes in, you hand the ball on, and the ball is just as shiny and bright as it was in the first year. As producers, it's impossible to understand what it's like to work in a network and the considerations that apply to working in a network, and so I think it's the best thing I ever did, because it taught me to be a much better producer, a far more respectful producer, because until you go into a network and work with all the different priorities that exist, you have no idea as a producer outside. And so I think it was great, but the opportunity then was, with the charter, was to try and just explode the amount of New Zealand TV, and that's where, when I saw the pilot, the overseas pilot of Dancing with the Stars, I thought, hey, this will capture New Zealand. Everybody else said, how tragic, how sad, nobody is ever going to watch people dancing. And I said, it's not about dancing, it's about characters, and it's about wanting to see someone fall flat on their ass, and wanting to see Rodney Hyde fall flat on his ass. The future of TV is, beginning, middle and end, is content. People will always, no matter what way you receive it, they'll always want the program, the idea, the story, the characters. It's content. So for my money, everybody should be focusing on, let's make stuff. And now the cheapness with which people can make stuff, look at the 40 Hour Film Festival, look at the quality of what people are doing with video cameras like you've got. So making ideas and stories and telling stories, that is the future, and that will never change. How you get those stories won't matter, and it still doesn't matter now. Free-to-air TV is not dead. It will remain very alive for a very long time, because a lot of people, half the population of New Zealand, cannot afford to pay Rupert Murdoch a lot of money for Sky. So free-to-air TV with great content has got an enormously big future.